How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here. Wrestling Observer Radio, May 7, 2018. Figure4online.com/WrestlingObserver.com. Yes, we will be talking about the pay-per-view, but Dave wants to talk about the WWE earnings report first.
I don't want to talk about the pay-per-view because if I talk about that, then nothing else will be significant after that point. So anyway, so the WWE did their earnings report on Thursday, and there were some interesting things. I mean, essentially, because this all bleeds together anyway. WWE and UFC both right now are in a position where, because of the escalating rights fees that television stations appear to be wanting to pay for live sports or pseudo sports in the case of wrestling, that essentially they're fine financially, and it's good in a way. They're fine. They're in a state that they've never been in their history, in the sense that in both cases with both WWE and UFC, that satisfying the consumer individually is no longer necessary.
Well, that was proven tonight.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this first. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is no, granted, if you absolutely, destroy your fan base and nobody wants to watch your product, yes, at some point you will pay for it. Although if WWE, let's just say WWE goes through a WCW level, WCW level of creativity and booking and everything like that, which tonight's show, in fact,
I was going to say,
tonight's show was, in fact, the first time that I've seen them do a show that was similar to, one of those WCW shows when they were going down. I mean, no doubt this was a disaster of a show, but but even if they do that, if they, because they're going to sign their new TV deal for whatever money it is, it's going to be a huge increase, and it's going to be for multiple years, probably 3 or 5 years. So that money is going to be guaranteed. So even if, if network numbers go way down, and if live attendance goes way down, neither of which is happening, but if they were to happen, there'd be some belt cutting and some belt tightening needed here and there. But even so, they're still going to be fine. And it's the same thing like with UFC this year, where you talk about, lots of pay-per-views that aren't doing big numbers. UFC's got a show that's coming Saturday that's not going to do much in the way of numbers. The live gates for UFC actually are pretty good, so that they have not had trouble. They really haven't had trouble selling tickets to shows in most cases. But even if they did, the television, it carries them. I mean, UFC is ridiculously profitable, but they also have to service a ridiculously high debt. And WWE has some debt, but it's not anywhere near UFC's level, and the servicing of the debt's not that much money, in the big picture. It's nothing it's not even a stressful thing, whereas with UFC it's somewhat of a stressful thing. So this WWE stock continues to rise, because the reality is that this year is going to be the biggest year financially that they've ever had, which I know people have claimed that other years have been, like last year was, which it wasn't. I mean, for total revenue it was, but for profit it absolutely wasn't. This year will, in fact, set the all-time profit record for the company, and next year will probably be, which would be the final year of the current deals, will be even better because those numbers escalate. And then after that, in the year of 2020 is when the new deals will go into place, and those deals should be far more lucrative than the current deals. I mean, far more, to the point that from 2020 on, like I said, this company is going to be on easy street in a lot of ways. And I know that it's Vince McMahon's a very hard worker, for better or for worse. He's a very hard worker. And he, if you work at the top level in WWE, you're going to work really, really hard. Lazy people can't survive there. That's just a reality. But they will be in a position where, if they were lazy people, the company would still do really well. I mean, that's the deals essentially that they're negotiating right now, that they hope to announce in the next, between now and September is when they're hoping to announce their deal for 2000. It actually would start in October 2019, but essentially 2020 and the next couple of years. So, the little things that are different as far as that goes for WWE. Financially, they're fine. There's nothing to worry about or anything like that. Now, that said, it's the new financial report was very interesting because of not so much what came out, but for what is not being reported anymore. I mean, they've completely changed what they've done. And, there's a lot of real key things that number one, I mean, there's so many, but one of the key things that we have talked about, so WWE Network numbers, okay, the actual number as far as let me get the subscriber numbers for the network. Okay, so they were up slightly. The foreign was up a lot more than the domestic. Let me get the split here. This is as of a couple days before WrestleMania, actually, on March 31st. So the domestic okay. Let me just get to this is on March 31st. There would have been let me get the number. So there had been 1,624 no, that's total. That's total and free and paid, I think. Okay, so it would have been, the domestic number would be 1,190, and on the same day last year, March 31st, 2017, there were 1,165. So there's 25,000 more this year than last year. But what we don't know, and there's no way of finding out, is how many of those 25,000 signed up for 99 cents for 3 months, or $3.99 for 3 months, or one of those discounted numbers.
I think it was 99, $1.99, or $2.99. Those were the options. Presumably to see which had the highest retention rate, which we also don't know.
But we're not going to know anything, because one of the things that they've also done is, this is the first quarter where they have not announced the churn. Like how many new people signed up versus how many people stopped signing up. So if we're up, a certain amount, but lots of people canceled and lots of new subscribers signed up for 99 cents for 3 months, that's not necessarily, the 25,000 up is not necessarily a good thing. They could, revenue-wise, as far as domestic revenue, be down for all we know. And foreign, it was a little bit better, because foreign, it went from 409 to 434. So, but even then, which is also it's also 25,000 gain. But also, the foreign subscribers also had those same discounted things. So again, if there's, let's just say there's 25,000 domestic, 25,000 foreign signing up at 99 cents. I mean, it's like, it looks really good that numbers are up, but they, in reality, they may not be up. Now, in theory, the people who sign up for 99 cents are going to be charged when the thing is over in $9.99. But we're not going to know how many, cancel or anything like that next quarter, because those numbers are no longer available. What they did as far as revenue goes is they combined pay-per-view, which, as we've talked about before, pay-per-view, at least in 2017, was up significantly. It was up 25%, more than network. Now, that makes it goes against everything that we're taught, everything that we're told. But that's what happened. It was way up. All those numbers are lumped in. And also, there are some markets where the network is it's television station in certain countries, in Canada being one of them, as a matter of fact. And they are paid rights fees that escalate for the network, similar to those deals for Raw and SmackDown. So those numbers go up. They're not listed as paid subscribers so much, but that revenue is in there. So the increase in revenue, which looks like the network revenue is up, could very well be hiding that the revenue is down, for actual network. Because those rights fees are up and because the pay-per-view is up. We don't know. It's not broken down. Another thing that's, let me just get the other things. They no longer list, but the thing of like not listing the number of new subscribers and the number of canceled subscribers. They what else? The cost of NXT is no longer listed. The movie division is no longer listed as a separate line item. So we don't know. The movie division has been really the one thing that either sometimes it makes a little bit of money, sometimes it loses. Lately, it's been kind of, loses a little, makes a little. It hasn't been a big deal either way, but they've broken that away. So we don't really see how that does either. Let me see. But there's actually several other things that have changed. Oh, also another really interesting one is they used to break down the revenue by region. So like you would see like United States, Canada, Europe, all broken down. The key to that is that YouTube numbers are huge in India. It's and 80% of the YouTube numbers are out. One of the big things of this, and actually during the conference call, this was actually asked. One of the guys goes, "How come?" Because they were really bragging about YouTube numbers, and YouTube numbers were way, way, way up, and that does help them in some form because there is some advertising, so it does help a little bit financially, but. What does it mean really as far as like the big picture? Because a lot of people will use now television ratings are actually up slightly this year in the United States after dropping year after year after year. And the whole point when ratings were dropping, everyone was, oh, ratings don't matter, ratings don't count, they don't measure anything. Well, now all of a sudden, I guess maybe they matter, I don't know. But they are up slightly. But at the same time, the house show attendance is down a little bit. It's not down a lot, but it is down. The merchandise is down a little bit. Actually, it's actually cut in more than half based on the numbers this quarter, but that's very misleading. It's actually it's different accounting, but they are down. Toys are down a little bit. Other merchandise numbers are pretty much the same. Venue merchandise is down, but that's because live attendance is down. It's not per head. Is not down, which would be the key as far as that goes. If per head was down, then you're going like, okay, the merchandise itself is falling, but merchandise is down because less people are going to the live shows than went last year at the same time. But the point of all this is that these social media numbers and YouTube numbers are booming, but they're booming in countries where WWE doesn't see revenue. Or big revenue. And we won't know how much, like let's say like before with the gender experiment, we could look and see, okay, how is India doing as compared to the year before? And, it really wasn't making a difference. That big push for India wasn't making a difference. Now, so in the end, when they gave up on the gender experiment, we could say, okay, they tried, it didn't work, now we know. Now, all that stuff is hidden. We're not going to know. And I suppose we'll be able to figure it out if they try, another Indian superstar and then they give up on him. Maybe we'll be able to figure it out. But one of the things that's been noted was we have all of these YouTube viewers in all these countries, but all the revenue or a large percentage of revenue, probably 75%, roughly, comes from United States or United States and Canada. Now, what we do know is that there's tons and tons of YouTube viewership. 80% of the YouTube viewership is outside the United States. India, like I said, is probably the main country of it. Saudi Arabia is a big one too, as a matter of fact, and they do get revenue from Saudi Arabia because of that show, but that's not consumer revenue. That's something else. But the network subscriptions, it's 1,190,000 in the United States alone, 434,000. And that number would include Canada, the UK, everywhere else. So again, social media numbers, it's like it hasn't led to much of a difference in network subscribers. It hasn't led to any difference as far as people actually going to the arenas. Which, granted, going to the arenas means something, but it really doesn't mean that much because, again, the television revenue dwarfs all anyway. It hasn't made it. Television numbers aren't up substantially; they're up slightly. So it's like all of that stuff. The those where they are increasing greatly and where they are focusing on telling everyone they're increasing greatly are statistics that somehow, for whatever reason, have not, the actual money that they get is not reflected by those numbers. And now they are, because, you can look at that and immediately come to that conclusion, they are no longer giving those numbers. So it's just it's very interesting how this is all being done. Like I said, this is not like sleight of hand or anything like that. This is a new way of doing it that seems to hide some very interesting numbers, important numbers, but at the same time, because of where the real revenue is coming in, which is the TV money, it is going to go up. UFC's deal. UFC has had great declines last year, and their offers that are out there right now are still, UFC could get on their next U.S. contract, they could get double what they were getting on the old contract. It could be as much as double. I mean, it could even, maybe it's even more, but doubling would not surprise me. WWE, which is going up, they're probably going to, again, I don't want to say they're going to double, but they're going to be way up. So, and that's, again, and WWE expenses, they've learned, as far as the profitability and everything like that, they've learned what to do. They've learned so much about the network. They're going to cut back, they've cut back on the number of pay-per-views because they realize that doesn't make a difference. They cut back on a lot of those original programs because that doesn't really make a difference. They're still doing some of them. And, again, when they first went to the network model, the whole deal of the network model was that the network was going to be the prime driver of the company being more successful than it's ever been. Well, as it turned out, and then the television, I remember we were talking to some people with WWE right when the network started, and it was like, what if it's a slow build and everything like that? Well, the one good thing is the TV revenue can carry while the network builds. What we found out instead is the network is pretty much where it's going to be. The growth is extremely slow, and again, because of the gimmicks and everything like that, and the gimmicks again, those 99-cent for 3-month people may let their roll the thing over, and they become $9.99 subscribers, and WWE is counting on that. They are counting on a huge increase in Q2 on the network. So that's going to be very interesting. We're not going to be able to know exactly how big because of the way everything's accounted for, but we'll get the network number, so we'll at least know, we'll have an idea of how many people they converted and everything like that. So the first quarter, even if the first quarter is down, it could not necessarily be a bad thing. It also could be a not very good thing because you've got you've got an artificial number essentially that you're pushing because of those 99-cent people who signed up for 3 months for 99-cent. That's kind of an artificial number, if you compare it to the year before. We're not even throwing in the free stuff there because these people are listed as full paid subscribers, even though WWE is getting, actually losing money because it costs more than 99 cents for 3 months per subscriber just to to basically have them. So I mean, so that's kind of like the whole thing. But anyway, the big thing on this is, as far as the network is pretty much looking like house show business. It's a steady business. It's not going up. It's not going down, which is good enough for right now. And the television revenue is going way up. And that's why, as long as this continues and as long as there is more money being paid as they do more and more content, and which is another thing. That's one of the reasons, by the way, why these shows are longer, is because one of the things that they're pushing, they push that in the financial report, is that people are watching the network longer than ever before. Well, the reason, like WrestleMania week, they're making a big deal. Essentially, the average network subscriber, which is both paid and free, watched, I think it was 19 minutes extra during WrestleMania week. Well, WrestleMania was longer, NXT was longer. The Hall of Fame was way longer. They presented a lot more new product. So 19 minutes more, yeah, it's understandable. But that, again, that's one of the reasons, again, why we got this pay-per-view show going longer, is because then they could say, hey, the network is averaging more minutes per subscriber. These subscribers, instead of staying on watching, let's say, a 3-hour show, if you include, let's say you tune in, let's say 3 hours, 15 minutes, you tune in for the last half hour of the pre-show and a 2-hour, 45-minute pay-per-view. Well, now it's the last half hour of the pre-show and it's a 3.5-hour pay-per-view. So the average person, unless everyone clicked off during the Roman Reigns match, which they probably didn't, although I know a lot of people did leave the building during it, but that's where it looks good, and that's one of the reasons that we're doing this. So that essentially explains the Elias segment and why you would go long and have that, long ass segment that, and then you still, and then you end up going really long, much
So basically
longer.
they have to torture us in order to present something compelling to their shareholders.
Well, in theory, they're not trying to torture us. They did tonight. I mean, yeah. Hopefully they don't do this every single month. But yeah, I mean, there was a reason. The thing is, again, when we talk about this card, I mean, they had like Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy, just as an example. I mean, those guys got cut way back, and they really didn't have a great match anyway, but they would have had a better match longer. So it is like they did cut back on the time in some of the matches. The Daniel Bryan Cass match was probably shorter than, I'm sure it's shorter than those two guys wanted by a lot. And even then, so even with those shorter matches, you had that long ass Elias segment, and so you ended up still with the show going 30 minutes past 11 or whatever it was. I don't know if it was exactly 30 minutes. It felt like it was 4 hours to me, but that's something different. So anyway, that's the basic gist of, it's, they want to make, I don't want to say like what their intentions were when they changed all this stuff. I know that it's interesting to me because it is a lot harder to read through stuff, and it's just way more vague than it ever was before. So there's a lot of stuff that I expected to learn that, in fact, in which one of the keys was how many, I mean, you could figure out from the revenue pretty much, how many people are subscribing under discount numbers and how many are real $10 subscribers. But the way they report the revenue, you can't at all, because you can't, there's too many numbers are added up all together to where you can't get any kind of a real reading. So before I could say like, well, we can look in and see how effective this marketing approach is, and we really can't. We're not going to be able to. So that's the gist of that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that was there. I mean, that, again, WWE, yeah, I mean, as far as like the other main stuff, I mean, that was basically it. House shows are down a little bit from last year, but they're not down a lot. And they're at 5,400 average, which for the first quarter, it's not good. I mean, it's not a disaster. When they get below, I would say if they get below like 4,500 as an average for house shows, I would consider that kind of bad, or, on the way of being bad. They've been they've been below 4,000, not that many years ago, but when they were at their down point before the rebound, they were down to 3,800, although first quarter's usually up. So it'll be interesting as far as like the rest of the year. But the drop, I mean, the drop looks like it was 10%, but it's really not. It's really closer to 4%. Because that last year in January, you had that San Antonio Royal Rumble that was in the stadium, so that inflated the average greatly from what the average really, really should be, so to speak. So if you factor that out, the difference isn't that much, but they are down, So anyway, before we do the other stuff, so the thing I'm sure everyone wants to talk about is the reaction of Roman Reigns in the main event. and it was what it was, and people walked out. I saw a picture of the building during the main event, and there were a lot of empty seats, a lot more than you would suspect. And how is Vince McMahon going to take the message? And I don't know the answer. Roman Reigns was, Roman Reigns, it is the New York market. The New York market is unique, but there's also that mentality from Vince. I mean, I don't know what he's going to think because it's Newark and not Madison Square Garden, but it's still a New York market. I mean, Vince was always like, if something happens in Toronto or Montreal or Calgary or Omaha or something like that, Vince is, whatever, it's that city, it's, or London, it's that city, they're a unique city, whatever. But when it's the same thing happens in New York, it's like, okay, that counts because that's the mentality there. That's all I can say. Well, this has happened a stone's throw from the city, a little subway ride, underground tunnel ride or whatever it is, from the city of New York with this show, and people walked out in pretty large numbers because the show was long and the show sucked and the match was laid out horribly. I mean, I couldn't even believe, I literally in that match, I couldn't believe my eyes. Or when I was watching
that
this.
match.
What?
Like most of the show, I couldn't believe my eyes.
I mean, the booking, sure. I mean, the match layout, yeah, I guess so. But to think that you would go that long with those guys, and put them on, I think that they think that Roman is still the number one guy other than, Cena or Brock. And because of that, they wanted to put him on last. And also, because of the Nakamura AJ finish, you didn't want to put that on to end the show, and you want to end the show with a good, clean finish. Now, of course, nobody cared, and Roman wasn't going to be over. The one thing that has been bad, though, in this Roman thing, there's probably a lot of things, but the one thing that I noticed on the Roman thing, which would be, it would have to do with the WrestleMania build and the Greatest Royal Rumble build, and to a degree, this match with Samoa Joe it's not just Roman Reigns, but in trying to force feed Roman Reigns. I mean, they basically killed is too strong of a word, but they took Brock Lesnar down a great degree. Because if you remember, Brock Lesnar was one of the most popular, probably one of the 2 or 3 most popular wrestlers in the company. But they were so intent on Roman Reigns getting cheered at WrestleMania that they portrayed Brock Lesnar in the one way, which is that he doesn't like you fans and he's going to leave for UFC, which is the one thing which from the lesson of 2004, if you tell these fans that you're leaving them and you're going somewhere else and you're going to desert these fans, they will in fact boo you. But they still aren't going to cheer Roman Reigns, which is the other part of the thing. That's where they kind of missed on. So they sacrificed Brock Lesnar for Roman Reigns, which is fine if Brock Lesnar's leaving and Roman is staying. That makes sense. The problem is they sacrificed Brock Lesnar and they didn't help Roman Reigns. And in this one, it was the same thing. They laid out a match to make sure that as much as they could, that Joe didn't get cheered, and that hopefully they don't boo Roman too much and they emotionally get you behind Roman because of the way the match is laid out. Well, what happened is that by the end of the match, nobody cared about Samoa Joe, who was, one of the best guys in the company. And yeah, you didn't, the big thing is like, well, John Cena always got the big reaction, even if when John Cena was at his peak, merchandise wise, and he came into Newark, New Jersey, he would get on a pay-per-view, he would get booed out of the building. Far worse than Roman Reigns did, because with Roman Reigns, it was apathy. With John Cena, it would be fervent booing. But John Cena still moved business. Roman Reigns doesn't move business in the same way. He does sell some merchandise, a good amount, but it's not John Cena level or anything like that. But John Cena also never took down the opponent of John Cena to make John Cena. Yes, did they try to manipulate you to cheer John Cena? 100%, just like Roman Reigns. But they never sacrificed. They would make the opponent do heelish things, but not things to make the audience turn on them the way that they did with Samoa Joe and even more so Brock Lesnar. So, yeah, that's the story of that main event. It didn't work, and someday Brock Lesnar is going to have to lose sooner or later, and Roman Reigns obviously has been the guy, and this may cause them to make a change. It really should. It really should. It really, at the end of the day, the title shouldn't go to Roman Reigns. That's all there is, and I think Roman Reigns was really devalued by not winning at Mania, and even so, the reality, the people were going to boo him anyway. I mean, if he had won at Mania, they should have turned him heel anyway. At this point, yeah, you could still turn him heel. It's probably the thing to do. What they're going to do, time will tell. I do not know.
All right, take us through this pre-show, then let's get into the rest of this.
Well, it's just Bayley and Ruby Riott. Well, they did a little thing before that where Bayley and Sasha Banks were there, and it was them not getting along, and so Sasha was not going to help Bayley in this match. So Bayley was out there with the entire Riott squad, and the match was exactly laid out like you would think, where Bayley she tackled Liv Morgan off the apron, turned around, Ruby Riott kicked her in the head, and then gave her the Riott kick and pinned her. This was probably, from a technical standpoint, maybe the second worst match on the show. They didn't have a good match. I mean, the crowd was real into it. From a heat standpoint, it was it might have been the second or third most heated match on the show. The crowd was super into Bayley, but they weren't on the same page. It was sloppy. They just didn't have a good match technically. So, as far as heat-wise, it was probably the most heat for a pre-show match because this crowd was on fire when the show started. And it was on fire for these, that's one of the things about the crowd is that they took a crowd that was on fire. This was a hot crowd, and they killed them by booking a horrible show. But, yeah, so it was, from a heat standpoint, it was probably as heated a pre-show match as I can remember. And from a work standpoint, it was probably the worst pre-show match in a long, long time.
All right, the show itself opened with the Seth Rollins-Miz match for the Intercontinental title, and they went 20 minutes and had a hell of a match. Back and forth early. Seth was just on fire this evening. Went for a springboard, got kicked for the heat, makes this big comeback. Hit a big tope, blockbuster, springboard clothesline, frog splash halfway across the ring. Went for another.
That's a cool looking frog splash.
Yep. He kicked out of the skull-crushing finale.
Twice.
Yep. So the story was after kick out of the first one, he went for the superplex into the Falcon Arrow, but his knee gave out. Miz hit a second skull-crushing finale. The idea being that...
I say this about the knee thing. Okay. They are really starting to overdo the knee and the shoulder into the post. The shoulder into the post they've been overdoing forever, but it's like every baby face has a bad knee all of a sudden.
So like I said, he hit the Falcon Arrow and his knee gave out. Miz hit a second skull-crushing finale. And usually in these matches, sometimes the guy will kick out of the other guy's finisher, but rarely will it be two. So it was a big near fall when he kicked out of that one. Traded a bunch of cradles.
The one thing on that, though, is the announcers completely gave away that he was kicking out because you could just tell with the tone. It's like I knew he was kicking out because what they do, the way that they have it done, and this is becoming too predictable and they need to get out of this habit, is when they tell you it's the finish, when a guy hits a move and they go, this has got to be it, that means it's not it. And they didn't need to do that. And when they don't tell you it's going to be it, then it can be it. So they pretty much telegraphed that second near fall. I mean, for the live crowd who didn't know, they went crazy because they weren't hearing the announcer. Essentially, if you know the announcer's code, tell you, oh, by the way, this isn't the finish, which was a really... again, it was something that they don't need to do, but that second one was probably the biggest pop of the whole show.
So they traded cradles. Seth hit the curb stomp out of nowhere, got the pin, retained the title, and that's it for Miz breaking the record, at least for another year or so. And an excellent opener, the only good thing on the show.
that was it for good wrestling, other than the Nakamura AJ match, which was ruined by the finish. Because they had a good match too, but there was not another good match on the show. I mean, this was so far above everything on the show that it's like it wasn't even close.
So here we go. Nia Jax, Alexa Bliss for the women's title. They're in a death spot. They have a bad match. Alexa's 5 feet tall and like 110 pounds. She's just beating on Nia. Nia's just selling and selling. Nobody's buying it.
Oh, it's terrible.
They're trying desperately to get into a guillotine. They cannot figure out how to do a guillotine. They finally just give up. Nia's just kind of throwing her around.
By the way, Alexa injured her left shoulder legit in this match on one of those spots where she got thrown around.
Which didn't even look good, which is the absolute worst way to get hurt, when it looks shitty and you get hurt. And
that's probably why she got hurt, because it looked shitty.
Finally gave her a DDT on the steps, but couldn't lift her up. So she drags her into the ring, which was also unbelievable. Goes for the Twisted Bliss. Nia caught her. Samoan drop. 1, 2, 3. This sucked so bad.
The interview was worse.
That Nia Jax, who got over as the babyface being bullied by the 110-pound girl, she cuts his promo afterwards and says, "This victory's for anybody who feels less or never felt good enough. It's for everybody that has been bullied.
All you women, don't change for your boyfriends."
That's right. Don't change for anybody. Make no apologies for anybody.
No matter how you look, you're a wonderful person. You know, the people were just dying. I mean, I'm watching this, and it's all the buzzwords too, because like you can tell, like people know when someone's cutting a promo that they're being real and they're being fake, or you know, and sometimes when they're being fake, it's okay because it's entertaining fake. You know, people are fine with that, but people know the difference. And sometimes, you know, some people are so good at promos that perhaps they're being fake and they can still swerve you. But this one, it was like, I'm listening to this going like, this is so... Nia Jax would never talk like this. This has nothing to do with any of her promos before. This is scripted shit to sell their anti-bullying message. Everyone knew it. Nobody wanted to hear it. I mean, honest to God, this was one of the... And again, I'm not... Nia Jax did not do a great delivery of this. So there is some...
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, unless it was like Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes, I don't know that anyone was going to be able to do shit with that material. I mean, this was really like I'm just listening to her recite these lines badly, and going like, you know, this bullying stuff, and it's just like nobody wants to hear it, nobody believes it. It's like corporate buzzwords. It's like everything that's wrong with a promo. Everything, you know what? Everything that's wrong with a promo, that's what this promo was.
I should note, by the way, that she got booed for this promo, but she was being booed before she even started talking. They hated the match. I think they wanted Alexa to win. And then when she cut the promo, they turned on her even worse. And this was a disaster.
Yeah. So where does she go from here?
Hell if I know, dude.
I mean, like who's next?
I don't know. Probably Alexa.
Great.
Although she's hurt, so I guess maybe Mickie James. I have no idea.
Mickie James? Like anyone's going to buy Alexa? Well, Mickie James is working with Ronda Rousey, so it won't be Mickie James. Like, I mean, so who do we got? Ruby Riott?
Could be Ruby Riott.
It could be Ruby Riott. She's gotten a couple of wins. I mean, logically, she beat Bayley and Sasha.
There you go.
So I guess the idea is that, I guess if you do that, I guess that you can bring all three of those women out there with the idea that poor Nia Jax.
Dude, that's the other thing. They didn't even have anybody out there to outnumber her tonight. It was a one-on-one fair fight, and Nia's out there beating the hell out of this tiny woman in an anti-bull, and she's going to cut an anti-bullying speech after the... It was just ridiculous. This was just lame. Samoa Joe with Dasha. They actually found a way to kill one of his promos by giving him turning the big dog into some puppy. I can't remember the word he used, but it sucked. He tried very hard to pull it off, but even Joe couldn't pull it off. So I'm sure they're proud of themselves.
When you can script a promo that Joe can't pull off.
Yeah, good job.
Man, I don't even think I could try. I mean, I guess if I really had to, I could probably try and write a promo bad enough to make Joe not get it over, but I'd have to work at it. I couldn't do it with ease.
So then, Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton for the U.S. title. They had a 5-star, 2-star match. This was
what? It was
just
there.
It was. If you want to look up the perfect, completely average match, this was it. It was
technically fine, but it was just slow and boring.
Yes, they had a very profoundly average professional wrestling match.
Very professional, very professional average match. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They went back and forth early. And Jeff hit a clothesline and a flying body block and then got dropped on the dasher boards. And then Orton did a long chin lock. And then Jeff made a comeback. Orton went for the RKO. Jeff hit the twist of fate. Senton, 1, 2, 3.
I was really surprised at the clean finish because I thought this was going to be the start of a program. And then when he did it, I thought for sure he's RKOing him after the match. But they couldn't do that because they saved that one for the Daniel Bryan match. So... yeah, it was interesting because...
And this was 12 minutes, and it felt like it was about 5.
Really? It felt to me like it was about 30.
Dude, no, it was just such a basic, simple, nothing happening match, and then it was over.
It felt long to me. Every match felt long to me tonight.
Well, I'll tell you a match that didn't feel long. Well, we'll get to it in a second. We got Elias first. So
Elias, now that felt like it went 45 minutes minimum. That thing never ended.
They wanted to make sure they could go 30 minutes past the 3-hour mark, and so they did a long deal with Elias. Comes out, tries to get heat. They cheer him. He keeps trying. They keep cheering him. Finally, they start to boo him a little bit, and the New Day comes out, and they put him over, saying they want to walk with Elias.
It's the same thing that always happens with Elias. They cheer him in every city, and then he says that the city is a septic tank, and then they boo him.
Except in Everett, when they cheered him more.
Yeah.
So he starts playing, they tell him to stop, or they start playing, he tells him to stop. Aiden English comes out with Rusev, New Day briefly vanishes, Rusev buries him, No Way Jose is out next, with Titus Worldwide, Breezango, New Day returns, they all do a conga line.
Bo Dallas was out there too.
Bo is out there, Elias tells him to knock it off.
Who was the woman in the dress?
I have no idea.
Okay, I don't either.
I think she was there the last time he had a conga line too. If I recall correctly, but goes through his concert again. Bobby Roode appears out of nowhere in his robe, lays out Elias with a DDT, and then starts dancing and shaking his ass, and they all dance to the back, and everybody looked like a geek here.
Yes, except for Elias.
Well, that's because he wasn't involved except to get beaten up.
Yeah. And so Aiden English wanted to dance in the conga line, and Rusev gave him this glare, like, don't you do this.
Dude, Rusev and Lana are turning on Aiden.
I think that's the best
and
thing. And
Rusev is going to remain a heel, and it doesn't matter what anyone thinks.
I guess. You're probably right.
I mean, the way they're setting it up, like Aiden on SmackDown, like he just popped back in his screen all innocent, and they gave him the look as he walked away, like, we're going to fuck you, dude. And then here he wants to dance with all the guys having fun, and they're looking at him like, there will be no fun here. He's going to be the babyface.
Aiden's not going to get over his babyface.
Well, he's not going to get over, but that's going to be the idea. Like, he's the babyface
and also, they're not going to try to get him over. I mean, when he turns, that's going to be when they break up with him. If they break up with him, that will be he's going to be Ty Dillinger. That's what he's going to be.
Daniel Bryan, Big Cass. This match went 7 minutes.
I was so sad.
It was a lifetime. Cass is just doing nothing. He did nothing in this match. He did some clubbering. He did one over-the-shoulder backbreaker, a few clotheslines, and a bunch of posing.
I'm wondering, boy, was he tanned, by the way.
Well, part of it is Daniel Bryan so white, but yes, he was completely orange.
Yeah, so he had a good tan. That was one good thing you could say about him.
It wasn't even a good tan. He was orange.
Okay, I wonder how much, just the whole situation. Not so much losing. I can't imagine. I mean, who knows? Who goes through people's heads? But I don't think so much losing to Daniel Bryan, but the nature of the loss and how it was done. I wonder if Cass was thrilled by that. I doubt he was.
There's no way he was thrilled.
Yeah, so
He
that
had a horrible match. He went for a boot. He missed, and Daniel Bryan just put him in the yes lock and submitted him.
But he tapped like immediately. Like there wasn't even like drama to the tap. It's like he's in the hold, tap, tap, tap. Then he gets his heat back at the end, which nobody wanted to see because the problem is in getting the heat back. You know what that means? They're going to wrestle
keep
again.
Going.
Yeah, it's like if it was one and done, I would just go, okay, we had a bad match. It was just, to tell the story because he's going after Miz. And obviously him and Miz are going to be working together sooner than later. But it's not going to be, he's still got unfinished business with Cass, and that ain't good.
This guy showed me nothing.
Yeah,
Zero.
I know.
Zilch.
You know what? This was, Grant, they didn't have a lot of time, and that may also be where he would be unhappy because he didn't have a lot of time.
Well, do more in that 7 minutes, dude.
Well,
like, if you can't have a good match with Daniel Bryan, who the hell's this guy going to have a good match with?
But who's to say how much of that was the agents?
Dude, Dave, he had 5 minutes of this 7-minute match, and it consisted of walking around and putting his arm in the air and walking around and standing there.
Who knows how much of that is the agents? Like I said, who knows how much of that?
The agents told him to have a bad match.
The agents lay out every one of these matches, and a lot of people had bad matches. So yes, the agents are at fault in a lot of the cases. There may have been a mentality of this is how you're a big guy and this is how you get over on a little guy like Daniel Bryan, because Daniel Bryan's so loved, and this is how you're going to get heat and blah blah blah, and it just didn't work. But this was a really big match for Cass. Because,
even the stuff that he did, he had no aggression, he had no nothing.
I agree.
He swung his arm for a clothesline. The agent's not telling him to swing for a bad clothesline. This just sucked.
No, you're right. You're right. But the thing is that this was he has just gotten back from an injury. He was getting a push when he got hurt. He was, he's big and he's blonde and he's got a good tan, and it's like that old mentality. And it's like the mentality of people in television, it's not just wrestling people, is that if you stand out at the airport and people do double takes, that makes you a star. And I'm sure when Cass walks around airports, because he's so tall and because he's so tanned and all that people look around and go, who is this guy? They probably, is he a big actor? Is he an NBA player? Is he a wrestler? I mean, who is this guy? They don't know him because he's not a famous guy, but he probably does turn heads. But that, what? That doesn't mean shit today because number one, they're not drawing casual fans, and the hardcore fans see through it. They don't care. So Cass is in a tough situation, but he is probably going to get pushed over and over again until it fails because, he's got a good look, and that means a lot. But if you go out there and you're not having a good match with Daniel Bryan, that is not a good thing on your resume.
So then we had Charlotte Carmella for the SmackDown title. Match sucked, and
it sucked.
I didn't even think about this when I reviewed the show earlier, but it was brought up to me in the thread.
What about Asuka?
Dude,
that's what I said when Asuka lost from the beginning.
Oh my God. Carmella beat Charlotte, who beat Asuka, and she beat her clean.
But here's the thing. It's like, okay, now we're a month away, okay? What value was it to beat Asuka?
Zero. Because let me explain something, Dave. Here's what I think.
Who gained from this?
I'm going to tell you what I think.
Nobody gained from it.
I'm going to tell you. They weren't thinking who is going to benefit from Asuka being beaten. What they were thinking was, we can't book this woman if she can never lose. So we've got to beat her, and then she can lose some tag matches, and we can build... That's all they were thinking about.
Yeah, that was the mentality of fucking Bill Goldberg. A lot of, don't you have isn't there like a precedent on that?
There is, but no one knew that.
God. How many...
all they can think about is we can't get any heat on Asuka if she's undefeated. So we got to end this streak. Then we can actually book her correctly.
But shouldn't she have been saved for Ronda Rousey?
Absolutely. I talked about that for months.
I mean, it's like if I could see when Charlotte beat her, if it's to set up, very quickly, because people forget, Charlotte and Ronda Rousey, like let's say it's SummerSlam, but it's too early, and I doubt they're going there, and they still may go there for WrestleMania. But you know what? If they're really going to Charlotte and Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, then explain this finish. I know it's going to be months away and it'll kind of be forgotten, but still, if when Roman Reigns was going for a year with Brock Lesnar, he didn't he did lose to Miz, but it wasn't like this, I mean, and that was also because they had to get a belt off of him. Again, it's like, so now she beat her clean. Does that mean we're not going to get a rematch? Because they didn't even.
No, of course we're going to get a rematch. You're trying to think like logically here. Guaranteed they're going to do a rematch.
Well, I'm sure.
I mean, Daniel Bryan beat Big Cass. Are going to do a rematch.
Yeah, but they got heat after. This one they didn't do that. She just got beat. Her knee, she got kicked in the knee, and then she got cradled. That was it.
Which, by the way, all of the heat on Carmella is based on the fact that she stole the title with Money in the Bank, and by beating Charlotte clean in the middle, like, what's her heat now?
There's no heat.
She proved she's better.
Yeah, the other problem too is, unfortunately here, Carmella had not been given any singles matches in a long, long time. So,
well, we found out why.
Yeah, but the point is, but she was given the belt. Well, if you're given the belt, you're going to have to be able to do title matches. And, I'm not saying Charlotte's the greatest worker in the world or anything like that, but she is one of the better women wrestlers in the company, and she's got more presence than most of them. And the other thing is she has not had when was the last time Charlotte had a match this bad? I can't even remember. She may not have ever had one as far as on the main roster. I mean, maybe when she was starting out in NXT before she got any experience. But I mean, and Charlotte Charlotte looked like in that 6-man tag match that they had on Tuesday, which was not a good match at all. But Charlotte was really good in that match. And Charlotte was great in the Asuka match. It was one of the best matches of her career. So it's not like Charlotte is having a series of really bad matches. Charlotte is actually having a series of really good matches, and she came out with this. And, Carmella took most of the match, and it sucked. I mean, even forgetting about the finish, which was not a good finish, but the match itself, I'm going like, there's something really wrong with this match. This match is like worse than anything on the show, essentially. It's worse than the Bayley match. Technically, I think the Bayley match actually had more missed spots, but the Bayley match had so much more heat than this one. But it's like, this was a bad match. This was the worst match on the show.
Then AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura. This, I swear to God, I hate the booking of this feud more than any feud I can imagine, maybe ever.
Yeah, now I don't care about either guy.
They have a match that ends in a countout. They announce that they will now be having a no disqualification match, which makes no sense. The countout finish leads to a no DQ match that ends via countout.
No, well, knockout, double knockout.
He counted to 10. It's a count out. It doesn't matter. The point is, now they're going to try to sell us on a last man standing match, because I guess
most likely
we'd be more satisfied if this match had ended with one guy getting to his feet before the other guy and becoming the world champion. Seriously, that's going to be more satisfying?
Yeah, Nakamura should have just won.
He should have just beat him here.
Yeah, Nakamura should have won. He should have won. He should have cheated. He should have done something dastardly, but he should have won. And that's, but yeah, because this after 2 straight matches like this, it's like, you can't get excited about another one.
Hell no. And they were having a very good match until this awful finish.
Yeah. The match itself, the quality of the match was very good. Yeah.
And man, you look at this show, and I'm sure they didn't know the matches would be quite this bad, but Jesus, on this show, the last thing we needed was both guys kicking each other in the balls and not getting up, and that's the end of the match. These fans were furious after this.
I was furious.
And then you're going to follow that up with, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but they had a very good match until the finish. It was the best of the 3 so far. Nakamura is way better as a heel. AJ's a great babyface. The dynamic is much better. Nakamura worked him over the entire time. They finally did the low blow. Shinsuke gave him a low blow, and then AJ gave him a low blow right back. Everybody popped for that. And they trade a bunch of strikes, and then both wind up and kick each other in the nuts. The crowd popped when they both kicked each other in the nuts because they're like, man, what a cool spot.
That's a cool spot, yeah.
And then they didn't get up. I was like, maybe Paige will come out and say, I forgot to mention in this no DQ that it's also no count out. But no, nobody did that. And both guys just laid there on the mat, and that was the end. Infuriating.
Yep, agreed. It ruined a good match. And I honestly think that ruined the whole card.
Yeah.
Because I think if AJ and Nakamura would have had a good match with a good finish, I think that the fans would have been a lot happier going into the Strowman match, and they wouldn't have crapped on that as much, and Joe and Reigns wouldn't have had to come uphill as much as they had to. The crowd still was going to hate Roman Reigns either way. I mean, that wasn't going to change. But they might have, not been in such a bad mood for that match to where, they weren't trying to do a protest or just leave. And, I think a lot of people are just leaving early because, whatever. It's probably whatever. There's a lot of things going for it, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, like it's a work night at 11:35, and they're still watching a Roman Reigns match. Hello, of course they're going to get the hell out of there.
They've gone to 11:35 on.
Not after a show like this.
No, well, of course not.
I was ready to quit 10 minutes into that Samoa Joe match.
I couldn't,
and I love Samoa Joe.
I couldn't believe that Samoa Joe match.
We'll get to that in a second. Hold on, I got to get to this Lashley match. So listen. After that horrible finish in the World Championship match, you can't just give the people a goddamn tag team match in the semi-main event. You have to go out there and book some goofy storyline where Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens can't get along, and Sami Zayn tries to leave, and Kevin Owens tries to stop him, and they're throwing each other in the ring, and they're slapping each other. Nobody gave a shit about this. It's horrible, and it's so bad that the one guy on Raw a few weeks ago that was over like crazy.
Well, he'll still be over.
But they didn't give a shit here when he got his tag.
My God. How about when he power slammed those guys to crickets?
Yeah, I wonder why. Because earlier in the show, Nia Jax cuts his promo about anti-bullying. And then at the end of this match, these two giant dudes are totally bullying Sami Zayn. And then they bully Kevin Owens and they lay him out after a horrible match with a bunch of bullshit. This sucked. I was hating this show.
Yeah, okay. I agree. So I'm trying to figure out, how does Bobby Lashley look the way he does?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, this guy's 40.
His dad was a drill sergeant.
Yeah, this guy's 41 years old, almost 42. Especially his back. It's freaking amazing. I thought that, I don't know what I thought. Oh my God. But, he's another one. Bobby Lashley in TNA was a really interesting character. He did good promos. He was a monster.
Yeah, he was a badass MMA fighter that kicked people's ass.
And here...
Now he's a guy that does a suplex for a finish.
Well, it's not the finish, but
that was a finish. That was a finish
of this
match.
No, I know it's a finish. That's not the problem. His problem isn't that he did a suplex for a finish. His problem is that they have, and they protected him. They've made him look strong. But I think that maybe because he's the setup guy for Strowman, it kind of weakened him in people's eyes. And because they never let him do promos because they're afraid of his promos, which in fact, and you know what? He may suck at their promos because in TNA, it's a completely different style of promos. So they may be right for all I know we won't know until he does them. But all I know is that I saw him people are going to go in there and go, Bobby Lashley's boring and Bobby Lashley's this and Bobby Lashley's that. And I watched him in TNA for the last several years and he is anything but. He's not a great worker, but he's not bad. And he's had some good matches. His selling isn't the best. That's, that is a weakness, but his promos improved 1,000%. And he is, it's like he's this guy with this great physique, this absolutely killer physique, and that's it. There's what else is there? And his dad's a drill sergeant, and he works really hard. And what else do we know about him? Oh, he's fought MMA, But it's they can't even talk about his first run there, because the only thing anyone knows is Trump, and they're banned from talking about Trump because they're afraid of insulting the half of their audience that hates Trump, or the more than half of their audience that hates Trump, and the Mexican American audience and all that. So they can't even talk about it. So there's poor Bobby, just whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't, you know what, though? It's like, that's yeah. You know, I mean, that was amazing. They had literally the hottest crowd that they've had a show in front of in a long, long time, except for, well, Montreal was a hot crowd. But I mean, for a pay-per-view, in a long, long time. And they had Braun Strowman out there playing like a monster, and nobody cared because the show had been so bad up to that point.
And we had Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe. Fans were chanting for Joe when he came out, and that was the beginning of the end. As noted, well, first off, Joe attacks him before the bell, beats him up all over the place. I was like, dude, just throw the match out. That'd be a perfect ending for this show. Just don't even have the match while we're at it.
No, but that would have sucked. That would have sucked. I won't say it would have sucked worse because this sucked bad, but it would have sucked as bad to not have the match.
So as you noted, they've fucked this up every time with Roman Reigns. They figure, well, man, people don't like Roman, so we'll have Joe be boring in this match, and that'll make people cheer Roman. Wrong. They didn't care about either guy. Joe at 8:10, 3 hours and 10 minutes into the show, puts this guy in an arm lock and then a chin lock. For 5 minutes, they're laying there on the mat.
Was it 5 minutes? Fans
are chanting, boring. I don't know exactly how long it was, but it was minutes on end.
I mean, I by this point, this whole show had felt to me like it'd been 40 days and 40 nights. So I was like, I had no concept of time. I mean, it was like, all I kept thinking is that I just watched Tanahashi and Okada like Friday, and you know what I mean, or Saturday, whatever day it was. I watched that match. It was
a bad follow up.
Yeah, it was Friday actually, but still. But yeah, it's like that's all I kept thinking is like, wrestling isn't. It's like if you're like a really good worker, you know, you can have like no knees and torn biceps and fucked up shoulders, but if you're really good and know what you're doing, and granted you're in the ring with Okada, but still, and then these guys like one after the other just.
Hey, since people have asked, could Okada have a good match with Big Cass?
I don't know. I'm gonna bet no.
Oh,
I'm gonna say he can have an average match with Cass for sure.
Holy smokes!
But I don't think he could have. I don't think he could have a 3.5 star match with Cass, or a 3-star match with Cass. I saw Okada have a really good match with Moose, and but Moose is more athletic than Cass to me anyway. So
they're having this boring match, lots of chin locks, lots of arm locks, more chin locks. We get boring chants, CM Punk chants. This is boring chants. Beat the traffic chants, Rusev Day chants.
By the way, we never talked about, they chanted for Enzo in the Cass match.
Enzo chants in the Cass match.
God, that's like appalling to chant for Enzo. To me, I don't know. We want Enzo. You're watching Daniel Bryan match and you're chanting, we want Enzo. Oh, yeah.
What we were watching, Dave, was a big Cass match when they chanted, we want Enzo. I realized that Daniel Bryan was in there, but he was in there laying there.
Shouldn't he be chanting yes or come back, we want Daniel?
Not when the match is that boring. They killed that match.
I didn't think that match was that horrible. I mean, it was bad, don't get me wrong, but jeez.
So, finally, Roman makes a comeback. Joe cuts him off. Fans have so given up on this match, they don't even care. They don't care when Joe cuts him off. They don't care when Roman makes a comeback. They're just sitting there. They're leaving. We're getting pictures from the building of the place emptying out.
I couldn't believe it, but yeah, I think that there was at that point, because the show had been so horrible, that it was a combination of people going like, this match isn't any good, it's late, we want to get out of there, and then other people just kind of like doing like it took the air out of the building essentially. So they're out there, you know. I mean, when people are leaving in droves during a match, even if the match is really good, the people who are remaining in their chairs are going to be distracted by everyone leaving, and the whole building has a certain feel to it. And that's what happened here. So, yeah, there was nothing, you know, there were some spots in the match that were pretty good. And I mean, from a standpoint of like what they did, there was nothing wrong with the execution. I mean, that long, it was a terrible layout because they bored people before they got to the good stuff. But by the time they got to the good stuff, there was nothing those guys could have done. That match was already over as far as that audience went.
So finally, Roman is spirited out of nowhere and wins. They cut to a shot of people celebrating, but they're not celebrating. They're leaving. And I mean, they're rushing out of the building. I've never seen a camera cut like this before in WWE.
Yeah, that was a bad. They misjudged that one because it really that accentuated it.
And yeah, that was the end of the show. Unbelievably awful show.
Yeah, this is gonna be the worst show of the year.
I will be astounded if there's one worse.
I would be not happy if there's one in the running like this, because that means I'm going to have to watch another show this bad, and that's going to be a waste of a day. But yeah, this was, well, a lot of times when that happens, Raw ends up being really good the next day. So we'll see.
It can't be worse.
Yeah, so the Nassau Coliseum. Yeah, Nassau Coliseum has a rep for being a bad place, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what they come back with. We'll see what kind of programs they're doing. Unfortunately, it looks like a lot of. So we're gonna start the King of the Ring. What do I say? Money in the Bank build.
Yep.
Money in the Bank traditionally is one of the better shows. I think was there a commercial where they implied there's going to be 3 Money in the Bank matches instead of 2?
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it either, but somebody told me that there was a commercial. So they they're going to do a men, they're going to do a women, so they may do a tag. That if they do a third one, that could be. We'll see. But somebody had said there was a commercial that implied 3 Money in the Bank matches on that show.
How about that? All right, a couple of other notes here before we run out of time. The Best of the Super Juniors.
All right, so they tonight made the announcement. So the A block is Tiger Mask, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, ACH, Flip Gordon, Yo, Bushi, Will Ospreay, and Taiji Ishimori. This is not super strong. So Will and Ishimori, by the way, we're going to wrestle opening night, which I'll talk about in a second. But Will Ospreay's obviously the star of this block. Him and Yo is an interesting match. Him and Flip Gordon probably be good. Him and ACH will probably be real good. Him and Kanemaru will probably be a good match, but who cares? And him and Tiger Mask, same thing. Probably be a good match, but who cares? The B block is Chris Sabin, which is an interesting one. Kushida, Sho, Desperado, Hiromu Takahashi, Marty Scurll, Dragon Lee, and Ryusuke Taguchi. So the B block is the big one because pretty much, Desperado's a good worker. He's not really over or anything like that, but he really is good. Sho is going to be a great singles wrestler in time this may be the thing. Taguchi, everyone knows Taguchi is fantastic when he wants to be, and he's a goof when he doesn't. And I think in some of these matches, he's going to be fantastic. Kushida, obviously, great. Chris Sabin is a really good worker. So, and then, Hiromu is out of this world great. Dragon Lee is, great. Marty Scurll is one of the best workers in the entire business. So this is a great block. So that's the deal. So opening night, let me get to that. Opening night is the 18th, which is Friday morning. It's going to be free. You don't even have to sign up for New Japan World. It's just free. You just log in, click in, watch the show live. The tournament matches are Tiger Mask and Kanemaru. It's A block, so it's not necessarily that great, actually. Tiger Mask and Kanemaru, which is okay. ACH and Flip, which I think will be very acrobatic. I think it might be real good. Yo against Bushi, which is a grudge match. Probably okay. And Will Ospreay and Ishimori, which will probably be one hell of a match. So we didn't talk about this last night when we were going through the New Japan show in Fukuoka, but Ishimori did in fact debut. After Will Ospreay beat Kushida, Tama Tonga came out and did not very good promo. There was a guy in a mask, and he had a great physique, and it was pretty obvious who it was, and they unmasked. It was Ishimori, and then he laid out Will Ospreay to set up the match on the 18th. So Ishimori is in. He's a regular with New Japan now. He's going to be looks like he's a new member of Bullet Club. So there you go. And, Ishimori is so technically good. There's something, it's like, I don't know. I have a feeling that in New Japan, it's like I think he'll do well in this tournament, and they'll give him a push coming out of the blocks pretty good. But I don't know. Maybe, it's like there's their junior division. They've got Hiromu, Marty Scurll, Will Ospreay, and of course Kushida, who are kind of like the big four. And Dragon Lee and these kind of guys are all in the mix as well. But those are like the guys that kind of revolves around. And Ishimori can have great matches with all those guys, so he could be like a big five in that division and be really effective. But I just have this feeling that maybe he winds up like a Kanemaru type of guy. I hope he doesn't. I hope he's like really protected. But he's he really like live and up close. He is a hell of a worker.
The anniversary of the Ric Flair Kerry Von Erich Texas Stadium match.
Today is 34 years.
Holy smokes.
Man, I was there, freaking hot. I'll tell you what, because I was thinking about that today when I was bike riding, and I was going like, this is 34 years since I was at Texas Stadium. And if that card was held, this is for warning. I did this before I watched this card today. If that card was held today, people would say that card sucked so bad. But I was there, and I had a whale of a time. But between the Ric Flair Kerry Von Erich match went 12 minutes, I think 12, 13 minutes, whatever it was. It was like. It was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, but it was like, this is like the biggest show, one of the biggest shows in wrestling history. And this was one of the most emotional matches ever. Kerry Von Erich, David Von Erich had died on February 10th. So a couple months earlier, which actually is what led to them doing the show at the stadium. They had this, a lot of people were critical of them for doing the show and all this, but storyline wise, they kind of had to do it, I think. Because, and Kerry had to win. Unfortunately, this show, which was the apex of the Von Erichs thing with legitimately 32,000 paid in the building, and that's with, and they could have done a lot more. There were two things that really, as far as the build of the match with Ric Flair and Kerry Von Erich, like, everyone knew the story in their heads, which is that Kerry Von Erich's brother just died, and Kerry's dedicating this match to his brother. And the Von Erichs have been, between Fritz and the kids, have been chasing that NWA World title since, Gene Kiniski in the 60s. This is a 20-year storyline that that he almost has to win because David just died. And the people have been waiting for that, the Von Erich to win the world championship. So people in their minds had built this thing up really, really big. The company itself, I was there watching the TV every week. Not good as far as the buildup went. Luckily, the storyline was like can't miss. I think Ric Flair sent in maybe one promo for the entire build. I was thinking like Flair's going to send in all these promos. You got the stadium show. Ric Flair and Kerry Von Erich have had all these incredible matches, for the last, whatever it was when the first match, the real, like they had the real big one where the referee screwed up. So that's like that was 82. So it's like 2 straight years of Kerry chasing Ric Flair. They had the famous match on Christmas night where Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy turned on Kerry and cost him the title win in the cage match. And so he's been in this long chase. The Von Erichs have been chasing and all this, and They didn't do that. They didn't put Brody on the show. I don't know why. Maybe because Brody would have wanted a fair percentage, and they didn't. Who knows? Who knows what it was? He wasn't in Japan, I don't think, because I remember thinking, oh, they'll bring Brody in and all this. But they really should have done over 40,000 people for that show. But whatever. But yeah, it was a short match. It was hot as hell. Emotionally, though, it's like it was a very different era. Like now we would go in there and go like Ric Flair and Kerry Von Erich usually had these incredible, matches, 25 minutes, of just great drama. And this was just them going through the paces. I'm sure that, it was fine. It was good, but it was nothing, I think I gave it 3 1/4, and with Ric Flair, you expect 4-star matches, especially on this show, maybe more. And, but it didn't, the only thing that mattered was that Kerry won. So it was to the people there, all these flaws that I'm talking about didn't matter. Whereas today they would matter. The Fritz Von Erich match was Fritz, Mike, and Kevin against the Freebirds. And that was hot as hell. I mean, it was like 6 minutes though. And then, like now people go, it's 6-minute match. But then it was just like Fritz wrestled, sort of. I mean, he had the claw on 2 of those guys at the same time. It was a big, which I mean, whatever. The crowd went crazy. It was a street fight match, so Fritz didn't have to wear trunks because he was getting up there in age by this point. And, they had long breaks between matches. That show took forever. But like I said, this would have been, people would have just, if this match was on like a streaming service or it was on a pay-per-view, today people would be going like, this show it's so disorganized. The matches weren't that good and all that. But in that era, it was all about stories, and Kerry won the title, and Chris Adams and Sunshine beat Jimmy Garvin and Precious. And, God, there was a JYD. It was Kabuki and Kamala, which totally sucked. There was a JYD match that totally sucked. I think it was a tag team match. A couple other matches were okay. I don't remember off the top of my head the other matches, but when Kerry won, it was one of the bigger pops I ever saw. When Kerry Von Erich's walking down the aisle, and in the corner of the stadium, Mom comes out and Fritz comes out, and the little brothers come out, and they're all hugging, and he's got the world title belt, and people are crying legit. It was a hell of a deal. It really was. It's one of the more memorable shows that I ever went to. But, and at the time I thought it was a great show, but it's all about time and place. Today, that show would be awful today. God, because there were like 15, 20-minute delays between matches, and you're out there and it's 102 degrees out. And I mean, it was freaking brutal out in the sun that day. But you know what? It didn't matter to those people, because the story that they, in their own heads, like I said, like the promotion didn't even do a great job with the story, but the people knew the story, and that world title was over like crazy because they'd been chasing it for so many years. And I think I'll bet you that the people who were there would probably talk about it like it was the greatest thing. But like I said a couple days ago when I'm talking about short title reigns, Kerry winning the title was great. I went to Fort Worth the next day when Kerry wrestled Terry Gordy. They had a hell of a match. Kerry retained the title, and Kerry was on his way. And then it was like 3 weeks later, actually like maybe 19 days later, and they announced on TV that Ric Flair beat Kerry in Japan to win the title back, which he had to do because they weren't, Kerry got the title because they had to for the show, but they didn't really mean for him to be world champion. Ric Flair was the champion. In fact, if you watched Georgia wrestling or Carolina's wrestling, they never even acknowledged that Kerry won the match. There was no acknowledgement of the title change. I think St. Louis mentioned it because they were going to do rematches and because they had to, because world class, because the Von Erichs were so big in St. Louis. Florida mentioned it because Kerry came to Florida. And I think all the other NWA promotions never even acknowledged on their TV that the title even changed because Rick was getting it back so quick. And in New York and in the Carolinas, they're building, Ric Flair matches up as champion the whole time Kerry's champion. So, but when they announced that Ric Flair had beaten Kerry, Kerry losing the title in 19 days did a lot of damage to the promotion. They did business for, another. By 86 they were very weak, but 85 was still a strong year. But when they did the Ric Flair Kerry rematch on Christmas night, which I thought was going to be sellout, turn people away. They did 15,000 people, which is good, but it was not sellout. It was not turn people away, and that's when I realized it's like. And the weekly crowds were down after Kerry got back. It's like they believed in him and they thought he was going to be this great champion, and then he lost. And I mean, he was never the same. He was still over. They still popped for him, but drawing power wise, there was a difference. And that's why I said, like, if you got a baby face and he's doing a big chase and he wins the title, you can't take that thing off of him in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because then the people are going to see him as failure, and you don't want that your lead babyface to be a failure.
All right, everybody, on that note, we're totally out of time. We're going to be back tomorrow with more. We did a show last night as well. If you want all the news from New Japan, check that one out. Lots of shows up on the front page. New back issue of The Observer up tomorrow. Check it all out, and that is it. We will talk to you again after a while.